So Bittensor, in the past 24 hours, especially when it comes to its native token called TAO, there was a pretty okay movement. But beyond that, before I talk about that, I first want to talk about an interesting, or should I say, fascinating aspect that I do see when it comes to Bittensor. Now, nothing I say is financial advice, but I think this could have maybe long-term implications for Bittensor moving forward. And again, the reason why is because in case anyone has heard of something called RESI, which is a Bittensor subnet, by the way, not to be confused with YouTuber KSI, it's different in this case, right? We're talking about RESI, which again is a Bittensor subnet that is actually focused on the real estate market, arguably, I would say. It's actually powered by Bittensor, supposedly, and accelerated by NVIDIA. And NVIDIA, as we all know, is really focused on AI as of late, so I think this right here is pretty cool. But here's the thing. RESI, it's a real estate oracle, right? Now, people may be thinking, okay, how does this even matter for something like Bittensor? We got to think about this. Before I explain what an oracle is, we have to take a look at, for instance, I think the housing market in general, right? If I take a look at, for instance, something like Zillow. Now, according to something that was released, basically, an analysis, I would say, that they released in September 2025, they said how the US housing market actually reached around $55 trillion, which again was an analysis that they released in September 2025. We got to think about that. Around 55 trillion, that's really massive in the grand scheme of things. So if I take a look at that right there, kind of makes sense maybe, right? Why something like RESI could maybe have some future positive implications to something like Bittensor. Now, people may be thinking, okay, who cares about a real estate oracle? What does that even mean? Now, let me just give an example real quick. Has anyone heard of a project called Chainlink? Chainlink, it's focused on primarily oracles, right? And it's very well known for its decentralized oracle network. Now, an oracle, it's basically a data feed that brings data from off the chain, so it's off-chain data, and it brings that data over into the blockchain. Now, the reason why something like Chainlink has become pretty popular is because a lot of decentralized applications out there, without this off-chain data, they can't really function properly. So again, an oracle within this space is quite crucial, in my opinion, right? I think it's very important. And I think, again, a project like Chainlink plays a pretty important role within this space. Now, if we circle back to something like, again, RESI, a real estate oracle, basically, the way to take a look at it is it gives me Chainlink vibes, but then real estate, right? It's just a little bit of a different vibe. That's the way to take a look at it. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to Bittensor, it has a lot of subnets, which I do find to be pretty cool. And I think RESI is arguably one of them. If let's say that has pretty good adoption, I think that could maybe trickle down to something like Bittensor later. Now, when it comes to that situation, though, we'll have to wait and see. But when it comes to TAO, pretty okay recovery as of late. But really, in the grand scheme of things, we're still down by quite a lot. I mean, we're around 15 times lower than 3,000 as of right now. So again, this slight recovery, I think the enthusiasm that a lot of people, have kind of expressed as of late as a result of this slight recovery, I think showcases that TAO has been hovering at a very low point for quite a while, to the point that even, like 10% already has made a pretty positive impact. But here's the thing. If let's say when it comes to this, I'm not going to say I'm very disappointed because, if a project that I'm a fan of has a recovery, why would I be upset, right? I'm actually pretty happy as well to see this, but I feel like there's still hypothetically a ways to go because we're still quite low in the grand scheme of things. Like as of right now, TAO, which is Bittensor's native token, it has a market cap of around 2 billion, right? But if we think about it, we're actually around 2.5 times lower than a market cap in which TAO was just back in November of 2025. So less than half a year ago, we had a market cap that is, around 2.5 times more than what we have as of right now, which I find to be pretty fascinating, right? Not in a bad way in that sense, even though did I like the pullback? I mean, for dollar cost averaging reasons, yes. But in terms of the overall sentiment, of course, it's not going to be good if that happens. But here's the thing. We're around 2.5 times lower than that. So here's my point of view. If I just dollar cost average right now and TAO just goes back to like around a 5 billion market cap, I feel like I'm going to Sizzler. I mean, here's the thing. Again, we're around 2.5 times lower than that. And does anyone think that November of 2025 was an altcoin season? I don't, I mean, I just don't think it was. And I think that, if anything, showcased just how much TAO has had a pullback. So first of all, I just don't want to exit. Makes no sense for me as of right now because things are relatively speaking pretty low. Not to mention, we're still around 2.5 times lower than where we were just less than half a year ago back in November 2025 in terms of market cap when it comes to TAO. So whatever I dollar cost average right now, if it just goes back to where it once was, again, I'm going to scissor. That's the way you take a look at it. Now, I am not telling anyone to do anything, right? This is just personally my mindset, but sometimes you like to say, okay, what happens if it goes lower? Well, if it goes lower, okay, sure, it is what it is, but at the same time, still, we're around 2.5 times lower than a 5 billion market cap approximately. So it doesn't change that, right? Sure, things could have a pullback, but still, we're around 2.5 times lower than where we once was not that long ago. It's like, for instance, if I dollar cost average back then into Bitcoin at like $10 or $20, does it really matter as of right now? Not really, because at a certain point it becomes negligible, right? That difference right there. It may matter at that time, but over time it didn't really matter. So I feel like, okay, if I dollar cost average right now, things could maybe go lower, but I just feel like hypothetically, if we're around 2.5 times lower than where we were not that long ago, I'm just not going to complain for dollar cost averaging reasons. Now, again, things could maybe go lower, but that's why I'm dollar cost averaging only once a month, not any more, not any less. This is just, again, personally what I'm doing. I don't have to do this, but I'm voluntarily choosing to do so because I like Bittensor's focus. It's focused on AI, it's also focused on machine learning. And sure, there's a bunch of projects out there focused on that, but at the same time, Bittensor has that recognition, right? If we take a look at TAO, it's currently ranked number 36th in the world in terms of market cap within this space. So it's not like it's doing, so bad in my opinion. I mean, it's still a top 50 project. I mean, the way you take a look at it, any project in the top 50, whether it's a meme coin, whether it's Bittensor or whatever, if it's like in the top 50, I feel like it's just pretty difficult for it to become randomly irrelevant like that if, let's say, there was a hypothetical altcoin season. This is just the way to take a look at it because, again, usually a top 50 project has that community, which is already pretty amazing, right? It usually already has a good following. The fundamentals are already pretty established. So it's just a little bit difficult for it to get forgotten about during a hypothetical altcoin season. Now, had Bittensor been like the 1,853rd project or whatever, then yeah, it's easy to get forgotten about. But if it's something like this massive, it's just sometimes a little bit difficult, but we'll wait and see. So this is why I personally just haven't given up when it comes to TAO. I mean, I could leave, but I just don't want to because I feel like at the end of the day, I mean, a bunch of projects generally are still quite low, right? Despite this slight recovery in the grand scheme of things compared to where they once was at moments back in 2025. Again, a lot of projects are having a pullback. So at a time when a lot of projects are having a pullback, what do I want to focus on? I usually want to focus on the projects that I like fundamentally, that I also feel like have a good community, and arguably I maybe do see it here. So this is why I haven't given up. It's like, for instance, if even the projects that are not known for good fundamentals are having a pullback, and also the projects that have good fundamentals are also having a pullback. So again, there's kind of no distinction, right? A lot of memes are having a pullback. Also, Bittensor and its native token called TAO, it's generally had a pullback from where it once was in 2025. So if even the quote-unquote good projects and the ones that aren't known to have good fundamentals, if they're both having a pullback, am I going to be focusing on the ones that have the good fundamentals or the ones that don't have good fundamentals? Of course, I want to be more focused on the ones that I actually do like fundamentally, personally for me. Because it's like, for instance, if I walk inside a store and I want a t-shirt and I don't want any more socks, and yet the t-shirt and socks are both having a discount, I'm of course going to be focusing on the t-shirt, right? Because I don't need any more socks. That's the thing. As long as TAO is like below a 3 billion market cap, I'm not going to complain when it comes to dollar cost averaging. This is personally my mindset, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but this is just the way you take a look at it. However, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day. It's Billy the Captain, and I'll be sure to make more updated videos when it comes to Bittensor, so hopefully I'll stay tuned for that. Again, I want to say thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.